Good morning. We've got a lesson on Black Beauty today. We are almost done with this book altogether. So when you're watching this today, we're going to be doing chapters 41 and 42, and there's just a few more days until we finish part 3 of the story. And after Thanksgiving break, we are going to spend just 1 week finishing up and finding out where Black Beauty really ends his life. So he's had some really wonderful homes and then some places that were a lot harder for him to live in, especially some of the work that he does as a cab horse can be really difficult before he ended up with Jerry. But today we're going to continue where we left off with the story of, we heard Seedy Sam and Ginger are both characters that died having this exhaustion and lack of sleep that really took a toll on both of them. So that's where we're continuing today. So if you've got a book to follow along, you can on page 41. If not, you can follow along on the screen. Okay, so chapter 41. Also going to be reading a short chapter after that called The Election. Now, Black Beauty says, I saw a great deal of trouble among the horses in London, and much of it might have been prevented by a little common sense. We horses do not mind hard work if we are treated reasonably, and I am sure there are many driven by quite poor men who have a happier life than I had when I used to go in the Countess of W's carriage, with my silver-mounted harness and high feeding. It often went to my heart to see how the little ponies were used, straining along with heavy loads, or staggering under heavy blows from some low, cruel boy. Once I saw a little gray pony with a thick mane and a pretty head, and was so much like Merrylegs that if I had not been in harness, I should have neighed it to him. Some of you are asking about Merrylegs last week. Ginger came back into the story, and as far as we know, Merrylegs stayed where he went after leaving Squire Gordon's, and he was told, or the man who bought him was told to actually shoot Merrylegs if he gets too old and in very bad condition, so that he doesn't go off to a harder job. He is just put out of his pain and misery. So this is not Merrylegs, but he thinks it's Merrylegs, and probably because Black Beauty just saw Ginger. He was doing his best to pull a heavy cart with a strong, rough boy who was cutting him under the belly with his whip and chucking cruelly at his little mouth. Could it be Merrylegs? It was just like him, but then Mr. Bloomfield was never to sell him. Mr. Bloomfield's the one who's not supposed to sell Merrylegs. He's supposed to just shoot him if he gets into great pain. And I think he would not do it. But this might have been quite as good a little fellow, and had as happy a place when he was young. I often noticed the great speed at which butchers' horses were made to go, though I did not know why it was so till one day when we had to wait some time in St. John's Wood. So he's thinking, why is it that they mistreat these little ponies so much? But there was a butcher's shop next door. Do you all know what a butcher is? A butcher is a person whose job it is to sell meat. And so they will purchase an animal like a pig or a cow, and they would, in these times especially, actually kill that animal and chop it up to have as meat to sell. So I know some of you don't eat pig or cow, but that's what the butcher does. And as we were standing, a butcher's cart came dashing up at a great pace. The horse was hot and much exhausted. He hung his head down while his heaving sides and trembling legs showed how hard he had been driven. The lad jumped out of the cart and was getting the basket when the master came out of the shop much displeased. After looking at the horse, he turned angrily to the lad. How many times shall I tell you not to drive in this way? You ruined the last horse and broke his wind, and you are going to ruin this in the same way. If you were not my own son, I would dismiss you or fire you on the spot. It is a disgrace to have a horse brought to the shop in a condition like that. You are liable to be taken up to the police for such driving, and if you are, you need not look to me for bail, which is a way of getting out of jail. For I have spoken to you till I'm tired. You must look out for yourself." During this speech, the boy had stood by, sullen. He's kind of irritated, frustrated, and dogged. He's really tired. But when his father ceased, he broke out angrily. He said it wasn't his fault, and he wouldn't take the blame. He was only going by orders all the time. "You always say, 'Now be quick, now look sharp.' And when I go to the houses, one wants a leg of mutton for an early dinner, and I must be back with it in a quarter of an hour. Another cook has forgotten to order the beef. I must go and fetch it and be back in no time, or the mistress will scold." So they're always telling this boy to rush from one place to the other. And the housekeeper says they have company coming unexpectedly and must have some chops sent up directly. And the lady at number 4 in the Crescent never orders her dinner till the meat comes in for lunch. And it's nothing but hurry, hurry, hurry all the time. We've seen that a lot in this book so far. And that's something that really bothers Jerry. Jerry does not like to rush just because somebody else wants him to rush. Now, if the gentry would think of what they want and order their meat the day before, there need not be this blow-up. He's saying, if you just ordered your meat the day before, then we'd be able to just be fine every single day, just going at a good speed. "I wish to goodness they would," said the butcher, meaning I wish they would order ahead. "'Twould save me a wonderful deal of harass, and I could suit my customers much better if I knew beforehand. But there, what's the use of talking? Whoever thinks of a butcher's convenience or a butcher's horse? Now then, take him in and look to him well. Mind, he does not go out again today, and if anything else is wanted, you must carry it yourself in the basket." With that, he went in, and the horse was led away. But all boys are not cruel, Merrylegs says. I have seen some as fond of their pony or donkey as if it had been a favorite dog. And the little creatures have worked away as cheerfully and willingly for their young drivers as I work for Jerry. It may be hard work sometimes, but a friend's hand and voice make it easy. There is a young Custer boy who came up our street with greens and potatoes. He had an old pony, not very handsome, but the cheerfulest and pluckiest little thing I ever saw. And to see how fond those two were of each other was a treat. The pony followed his master like a dog, and when he got into his cart, would trot off without a whip or a word, and rattle down the street as merrily as if he had come out of the Queen's stables. Jerry liked the boy and called him Prince Charlie, for he said he would make a king of drivers someday. There was an old man, too, who used to come up our street with a little coal cart. He wore a coal heaver's hat and looked rough and black. He and his old horse used to plod together along the street, like two good partners who understood each other. The horses would stop of his own accord at the doors where they took coal of him. He used to keep one ear bent toward his master. The old man's cry could be heard up the street long before he came near. I never knew what he said, but the children called him Old Bar-hoo, for it sounded like that. Polly took her coal of him and was very friendly, and Jerry said it was a comfort to think how happy an old horse might be in a poor place. So there are poor people who treat their animals very well, but it is difficult, as you can see, for the butcher and the butcher's son, when people want much of them, for them to be harsh on the horses and whip them, so sadly. But it can be good for an old horse. Okay, that's the end of this chapter. We are going to be reading one more short chapter also today called The Election. So this is a story set in England, remember. So this is a local election that's happening in England. Goes pretty well since we're having a nationwide election. Or we've just been having that as well. So I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day, watch part 2, and then you've got some questions. Bye.